we're going to go ahead and break down exactly what's going on with the 2021 playoff picture. As you guys know, I break down all 32 NFL teams. And in order to gain a pulse on all 32, I have to watch game film and break down coaches' film of every single snap played. All right. I always say on Twitter, if you guys follow me on Twitter, that I'm not one of those guys who just goes and says, oh, well, this player's good or this player sucks, and then highlight like 4 or 5 plays out of the game. No, you're doing the player. Basically, you're disrespecting the player by not doing the due diligence and actually grading every single snap. So again, if you're going to criticize or praise a player, you're really going to have to do the due diligence. And in order to do that, you're going to have to watch 50, 65 hours of film every single week. And that's what I do. So when you guys see me come on these live streams, yeah, maybe only for an hour out of a time. But again, you're not paying me for that 1 hour or whatever. You're not watching specifically for that 1 hour. You're watching for the 50, 65 hours of pregame work that I did leading up to this exact podcast or whatever you guys want to call it, YouTube, live stream, Twitch, whatever the case may be. All right. So without further ado, I'm really excited. Thanksgiving's coming up. I hope you guys all have a happy and safe Thanksgiving. Please don't drink and drive. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of common sense. But with that being said, have fun. I mean, why not? Right? So just be smart and safe about it. So with that, without further ado, we're going to get started. We have some comments coming in. If you have comments, please send me those super chat and super stickers. That's going to help me stay on topic and on time. Again, as you guys know, I cover all 32 NFL teams. So on any given week, I can grade 16 games out of the week. And if you guys multiply that on both sides of the football, that's a lot of grading that I have to do to formulate my analysis. And then when the draft comes around, I already started my prep on that because I grade college players and have my mock drafts, and that's why I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but it is what it is. The Beast receipts check out. My prediction analysis are spot on. There's certain scouts around the NFL that actually go to my mock drafts when draft time comes around to see who's picking who and what. So without further ado, we're just going to get started on the risers and fallers as it comes to the 2021 playoff picture. And again, this podcast and this stream is dedicated to Brent Tanamachi, who passed away. A dear friend in the BEASTwriter family, was a big supporter of us, helped us a lot in the back end. If you guys are on Discord, he was actually our main driver of Discord and Twitch. So again, Brent Tanamachi, my heart goes out to you, and thoughts and prayers are with you and your family. All right. So Barrier Baller 18 has a comment. He says, Beast, do you use NFL Game Pass? I have NFL Game Pass and it sucks in my opinion. Yes, it does. NFL Game Pass is horrible. And for those who don't know, I don't care. NFL hears about that. I cover the NFL, but I don't care. I don't care. I always keep it 100. Game Pass is garbage. All right. Game Pass is garbage. And I do not use NFL Game Pass. I actually get it because I'm in the NFL media. I actually get the old version where you get the sideline and you get the end zone view where you don't have to toggle back and forth. The problem with NFL Game Pass, and I said it on Twitter, and I don't care, is I said it's basically the Madden of coaches film, because what they did was they dubbed it down. It's not even HD quality anymore, guys. Second of all, I have some notes here. Funny you mentioned this, Bay Area Baller. I don't care. I'm going to call it how I see it. And I spoke with those who work in the NFL media, whether it be ESPN, NFL Network, you name it. Some of my friends, and I told them, I was like, hey man, Game Pass is garbage. And they're like, yeah, we heard that. We heard that it's not the best. And he's like, how are you guys dealing with that? I'm like, man, I'm not. So I actually get coaches film. Luckily, another way, because it's just impossible. You cannot grade players from NFL Game Pass because, one, what they'll do is, I'm going to run it down right here. I have my notes here, and I was going to do a podcast on it, but since you brought it up, Bay Area Baller 18, let's just keep it 100, right? What is your favorite option? I'm being sarcastic here. Is it the warp speed function? What I mean by that is on NFL Game Pass, there is no way can you take a play and dissect it by tenths of a second. As the NFL, when you grade players, you want to grade by tenth of a second because that's how you get speed, and if that conversion converts on the football field as opposed to track speed. But aside from that, how do you dissect plays? You cannot do it by taking a 15-second clip, which they dubbed it down to, and then having a warp speed function to where you click on the play button and then it fast forwards 7 seconds and then it buffers. All right. This is on one single play, guys. And then it starts buffering, and then the quality of the exact frame just goes to shit. I don't care. I'll say it. And then what happens is then it rotates to the next play. So not only can you not pause the play that you're trying to watch, but then it has a warp speed function where it fast forwards 7 seconds. And then on top of that, when you try to pause it or try to replay it back, it goes on to 2 or 3 plays. It's like a rolling ticker. It's horrible. Game Pass is horrible. That's just one issue with it, all right, as opposed to last year. Now, they said they were going to make improvements, but here in the BEASTwriter family, what I always say is like, no, they're going to dub it down to like Madden. It's similar to like what Madden is today. Basically updated rosters or games, but they dub down the quality of the product. Furthermore, here's some things that I also found out on Game Pass, and I talked about this to, again, those in NFL media, and they're like, man, that's so, I don't know how people do it. You can't, all right? So it has a mind of its own. NFL Game Pass has a mind of its own. It goes to random plays, literally. And even when you go to the broadcast view, like right now, the coach's film is not out. And here we are sitting on Monday because coach's film is supposed to come out on Tuesday, 24 to 48 hours before the game is, after the game is played. Then it's supposed to come out. No, that doesn't happen. What happens is, what they'll do is they'll only take certain plays, right? And they'll have it like sideline view and end zone view. It'll be a discrepancy there. Like there would be some sideline view and then some end zone view, and then some will have no view. In fact, where is the week 2 matchup with the Kansas City Chiefs against the Baltimore Ravens? I'm still waiting for that film. It's not on Game Pass. I'll tell you that much. And so this is just off the top of my head. So that's another issue that's going to happen with Game Pass. So Game Pass is horrible. It sucks. All right. And then, aside from the warp speed function, the freeze frame having a mind of its own, there is no slow-mo option. Like I said, like you have to go and break it down by 10 seconds at a time. Like how are you supposed to grade a snap by breaking it down in 10 second form? Like that's impossible. You're already on to the next play. The play has already been developed. You don't know what's going on as it pertains to the splits with the second level backers based on the defensive line techniques up front. And then the cover shells on the back end. It's really difficult because if it has a warp speed function, you don't know who's in what type of coverage. If it's a cover 1 or a cover 3, if Tre'Davious White, for example, is playing, if they're playing a cover 3, but Tre'Davious White's matched up one-on-one, like let's say against Michael Pittman at Indianapolis Colts, well, you're not going to miss that because it's a 10-second function that's kind of missing. I'm just saying, Game Pass is horrible. And luckily, I don't have to pay for it because I'm a part of the Pro Football Writers Association. But damn, it sucks. And I don't even use it. And it's free for me. Like, I just don't use it. So those are just little options. The freeze frame, the buffering, how they kind of make you toggle back and forth between sideline view and end zone. Like, why would you do that? It's all 22. If you don't want to watch all 22, then just watch the broadcast version of it. But don't make us toggle back and forth between every single play. That's just crazy to me. And then they justify it by going on saying like, oh yeah, it's really good to who cares about rewatching games? You can DVR it if you wanted to, right? Like you could just record it and you rewatch it, like whatever game you want to watch. Like it just makes no difference. It's bad. It's bad. I don't know what else to tell you. It's really bad. So Barry Baller 18, I feel your pain on that. I know we're supposed to talk about the risers and fallers in the AFC and NFC, but it's really bad. It's horrible. It's horrible. Drew Burrow says, it's been a minute, bro. Hope you're good. I'm good. I'm getting over the flu. Not COVID related, obviously, but I've been off the grid. Obviously, I am dealing with the slightly torn rotator cuff. So I've been dealing with that. And like I said, I've still been grading film. It's not like I went off the grid, took a hiatus and no. I still grade film, watch 60 to 75 hours of film a week. Literally, I watch that much film. Like I literally watch that much film. In fact, I wake up at 6 a.m., watch film, and then here I am on this live stream. So I already put in about 6 hours of film watching already. When it pertains to week 11, I just graded the Buffalo Bills against the Indianapolis Colts game. And you guys, if you follow me on Twitter, you know I said Jonathan Taylor was a round 1 running back, and people were like, no, you know what you're talking about, bro. Like, here we are. Beast receipt checks out, bro. Jonathan Taylor, if you guys don't follow me on Twitter, he is now the 3rd youngest player to reach 100 scrimmage yards, all right, 100 plus scrimmage yards and 1 rushing touchdown in NFL history. 3rd youngest player to ever do that, right? And the other players, I believe, one of them was the name of LT, LaDainian Tomlinson. So go figure that. LT, 2006. All right, so Waruna Perea, my man, says, good to see you, Ryan. Good to see you too, Waruna. I hope you're doing well, my man. Tony Nagatani said, NFL doesn't want independent journalists to have access. You have to pay premium money like PFF does to have the real all 22. It's the NFL trying to keep control of the message. Yes, exactly. Exactly. I cannot say I don't disagree with that, but luckily I'm in the NFL media, so I get it still. Luckily I get it. And that's why it's so difficult. And I feel for people who don't have the networking power of maybe someone like a PFF or someone else like that, because at the end of the day, it's like, yo, like, wouldn't you want another's opinion? Like, why you want to push a narrative to one sole purpose? Like, and here, yeah, if you want to talk PFF grades, I post that stuff all over my Twitter. And I have no, like, and I'm not saying PFF is bad. There's a reason why they're the standard. All right. But it's always good to get another person's opinion. I mean, if one's the end all be all, and that's the Bible of grading, that don't make sense, bro. Because like, how can, again, you look at players that they graded from last year, and how are they first team all pros, but you graded them like 67 out of like 76 or whatever the case with the, it was Tyrann Mathieu. I tweeted that out. Tyrann Mathieu liked it. And here we are today. And even in today, they grade Tyrann Mathieu horrible this year. And he's my number one ranked strong safety, free safety, you name it, don't matter, interchangeable. And then entire NFL in my grading system. So that's what I'm saying. It's just ridiculous. But Tony Nagatani, I agree with you 110%. And luckily, like I said, I don't use NFL Game Pass. I think it's a joke. It really is a joke. Like, if you have it, I would say unsubscribe from it, because it doesn't do you any good. Like, if for people who want coaches film, now if you want to watch games just to watch the games, then yeah, that's a different story. But to justify that price point and guarantee that, you know, plays are going to be there when they're not, and then you have to toggle between sideline and end zone view, and then you have to buffer it out, and then it's not even HD quality, and then it fast forward, and then you have to pause, and then you have to play back. That's a lot of wheeling and dealing on one single play. I mean, you're looking at anywhere from 45 seconds to 1 minute just to get that frame correct, so it won't buffer out. And then you have to dissect the play on top of that. So you do that multiplied by how many plays within the game on both sides of the football. Is it really worth it? Hell no. All right. Barry Baller says, every time I try to use it, I only get frustrated. I can only use it for a condensed game. Yeah, it's really bad. It's really bad. And if you have NFL Game Pass, I'm not trying to say NFL Game Pass is horrible, but it is. It is. It's horrible. But yeah, I feel for you guys that have to use NFL Game Pass. Anyways, all right, we're going to break down the AFC and the NFC, my risers and my fallers. You guys wanted this information, so I'm going to give it to you 100. As we keep things 100 all day, every day here in the BEASTwriter family. Okay, let's start with, let me pull up that banner here, the 2021 playoff bracket, right? So we're going to talk about the playoff bracket here. And again, if you guys like the work, consider sending me those super chat and super stickers. That will help us stay on topic. If you have questions, send me those super chat and super stickers if you feel inclined to do so. All right, so let's talk about the AFC East, right? New England Patriots, number one. They're the top team in the AFC East. Now, is that concerning to me, or not concerning? Is that a surprise to me, I should say? No, because what I say after Bill Belichick was watching Tom Brady in Super Bowl, I say, you know what? He's gonna do something off the grid. He's gonna sign free agents that he's not used to doing, because he wants to get back and show the world that, hey, you know, yeah, Tom Brady won the Super Bowl, but hey, I don't need Tom Brady to win. And that's what they're doing. I mean, look at what Kendrick Bourne is doing. Look at what Hunter Henry has been doing the past few games in the red zone efficiency. Look at Christian Barmore, who I thought it was a steal, and I thought the Atlanta Falcons should have went after Christian Barmore in the second round instead of going after a guy like Richie Grant. So again, all my pre-draft analysis is coming up in my Beast Receipts and my post-draft analysis in week 11. Here we are today. Christian Barmore playing lights out. He's playing really, really well for a rookie. He's going to get my vote as it currently stands for PFWA, first team All-Pro. Not first team All-Pro, excuse me, rookie All-Pro, or rookie team, not All-Pro, rookie team. And you look at other guys around the league, like Pat Surtain. All right, Pat Surtain for the Denver Broncos, playing at a very, very high level, at a Pro Bowl level in my grading system. He might get first team All-Pro, not just rookie team. All right, in my selection. So Pat Surtain playing really well. We also have some other players that are doing really well. But when you talk about the AFC East, right, just off the top of my head, you know, Nelson Aguilar, right? You have Hunter Henry. You got Jonnu Smith, who wasn't really a big red zone target or a big target this year, which is kind of a surprise, because usually what I thought that the Patriots were going to go with was, I thought they were going to use a lot of double tight end sets, meaning 22 personnel, 12 personnel, especially down in the red zone, that will help out Mac Jones. Because usually when you have a young quarterback, the security blanket is usually who? The tight end, the wide receiver, right? So why not? Get it? Why not have two Ys, right? So you have Jonnu Smith and you have Hunter Henry, and you can use both of those guys like Tom Brady had when he had Rob Gronkowski, and Aaron Hernandez, right? We all remember what happened there. So again, Mac Jones playing at a really high level. And I'm not surprised that the Patriots are sitting atop of the division in the AFC East. I fully expect them to be in the hunt when it's all said and done with the Buffalo Bills. And me and my man Randy Mueller, who were on the show, already said back a few weeks ago during that time, in real time, that the Bills and Cowboys would be representing the AFC and NFC respectively for the Super Bowl. I'm going to have to talk to Randy and see what he says if that line of thinking has changed. For me, the scale has tipped a little bit. But I think that as of right now, the Patriots are the front runner along with the Buffalo Bills, all right, in the AFC East. Tony Nagatani, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, curious about your thoughts on Josh Norman's game yesterday. Also, Demo Lenore and Ambry Thomas, Aaron Banks too. Well, Tony, if you follow me, which you do, you've been one of my biggest supporters. You subscribe to my BEASTwriter Plus newsletter. I'll tell you right now, what I'd say about Demo Lenore, what I say about Ambry Thomas in real time when the picks were made and we're doing a live stream, I said what? Bad picks, bro. What I said about Aaron Banks? Bad pick, bro. Not a scheme fit, bro. Should have went after Asante Samuel Jr., bro. You would have killed 3 birds with 1 stone. Literally, you would have saved those picks on picking those cornerbacks. And then, instead of trading down with the Las Vegas Raiders from what was it, 45 to 48, or whatever the case may be, 46 to 48, whatever that draft pick was. And then you allow a team like the Los Angeles Chargers to pick up Asante Samuel Jr. And then you still have a need at cornerback, but then you reach for Aaron Banks. Come on, bro. What are you doing? So, no, Beast Receipts check out. You guys know it. Old news here in the BEASTwriter family. I don't see them having any future success. There's a reason why Josh Norman's in the game. All right. Now you bring up Josh Norman. Josh Norman is really good at fumbling and forcing fumbles using the Peanut Tillman punch, right? We all know what he does there. He's good at forcing turnovers, but he is a liability in pass coverage. What I see him doing is he gets beat on double moves. He gets beat deep. And if I am a team and I want to attack the San Francisco 49ers, well, look, they lead the league in defensive pass interference play calls, right? For a reason, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, well, it was an issue for the first half of the year. We know it's an issue. I'm going to go ahead and say, you know what? If it's 3rd and long, let's take a shot deep. Let's give ISO to one side, have Josh Norman covering that one side, even if he has safety over the top, and let's throw it to where only the receiver can get it. So basically what you're doing is you're throwing from the numbers to the boundary, all right? From the numbers to the boundary, because again, you want to squeeze and have that tight window there, because whether or not you only put it into the breadbasket to where only the receiver can catch it, you have to put it in a spot tight enough to where that safety can't come down and make a play on the football. And if he does, by then it all would be defaulted because Josh Norman will already be in a trail mode where he's 1.5 steps behind and he has no point or he has no other option but to defensive hold the receiver or try to make a play on the ball without turning his head around. So that's what I would do. Then this is one of the things that I want to look for with the San Francisco 49ers is Josh Norman's game has been, man, it's not good. It's not good. And he doesn't give up a lot of yards, but he does give up a lot of hidden yardage, right? And he does give up a lot of plays that, well, he was in the doghouse for a reason, right? I don't want to go emphasize that. You cannot say, Kyle Shanahan can't say, oh, I didn't know that Josh Norman was not in the game. Like, bro, you're the coach. If you don't know who's in the game and who's not in the game, what the heck are you looking at? You're the coach, bro. You knew he was in the doghouse. You just went to the media and said, oh, no, I didn't know he was I had no idea he was out there. Like, you need to know, if that was truly the case, you need to know Kyle Shanahan, who's on the field and who's not on the field. Like, I would know. Fans know. Announcers know. It's not like, oh, I didn't know he was out there or not out there. I know he was on the sideline with me. Come on, bro. I think that's ridiculous. Jan Paul Edward de Dios, I would have preferred him over Zaven Collins. Generation Rich, I wrote Belichick off like most people. And what does he do? He rebuilds the Death Star with the anti-Luke Skywalker, Mac Jones. Great. Yeah. John Zach says, yes, Samuel Jr. Yup. John's actually, there's a reason SF is leading the league in pass interference. There you go. Hufanga and Ward and Tart have to help him. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Christopher Dupas says Demo Lenore is good. He got burned twice out of how many times? And one of those times he got... No, he's not good. My grades will reflect he's not good. In fact, I grade every single snap, Chris. If you want to see that, I can pull up every single snap played, and I can actually break it down on the exact play where your comment, I would have to have a discussion about. I don't like calling it a debate or disagreement, but hey, the film doesn't lie. If you want those plays, I got it, because I grade every single play of every single player. All right, so yeah. John Zach says Norman is Sherman Jr. Yeah, I mean, it's bad. Let's go ahead and talk about the AFC West. Let's move on now within the AFC conference. Obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs had a big win last night, and I think it was a huge win for them. Obviously, Chris Jones had 3.5 sacks. I talked about Chris Jones, how I think he's a one-trick pony. I don't like how he does not stuff the run. I think he's a liability there, but he is a top 5 interior defensive lineman in terms of rushing the passer. That goes without question. He also gets a lot of PBUs at the line of scrimmage because he has a long arm length and a long wingspan. So with that being said, you saw it with 3.5 sacks yesterday's game. And again, the Chiefs are sitting atop the AFC West. I fully expect them to win the division. Now let's move on to the AFC North. All right, the AFC North, the Baltimore Ravens, I fully expect them to win that division. I mean, let's face it. I think the Steelers and the Browns are pretenders. Say it with me. I think the Steelers and the Browns are pretenders for multiple reasons. One, Big Ben is just not looking like Big Ben. I memean, yeah, they had that comeback last night, but it's just not happening. I mean, too many people have COVID. You had Minka Fitzpatrick out yesterday, who was a first-team All-Pro in my grading system, but in this year, graded at 7.0, graded at a Pro Bowl level. But with that, he's having kind of a down year, a lot of missed tackles. But with that being said, a lot of missed assignments on the back end for him. But again, when you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, look at who they're missing, right? Everything starts up front. Games are won down in the trenches. You lose Tyson Alu, right? I think it was to a fractured ankle. He's out for the year. You lose Stephon Tuitt for the whole year, basically, because he's been doing some mental health issues along with some knee issues. So he's been out, and he was great at a first-team All-Pro level last year. Actually got my vote for PFWA first-team All-Pro, and he hasn't even played a down yet. And then you have to roll in the next man up mentality. I talk about this with Randy Miller here in the BEASTwriter family about, it's about having good depth. And I tweeted this out. I said, you know what? The teams that are going to separate themselves from the first half of the season to the second half comes down to depth. And not just depth, but good depth. We can name players off a roster all we want, but how good are those players? I mean, is Isaiah Ludermelk really that good? No. Is Chris Wormley a viable starter? Maybe. He's a borderline starter. He's like hovering around 5.0 in my grading system, which is about average. So an average starter, yes, but is he going to replace and replicate the production that Stephon Tuitt did from that 4-technique defensive end position where Cam Hayward can then take on the double teams and you can still solidify sacks from those two guys up front? No, you cannot. You cannot replicate that type of production. It's not the similar situation to a guy like Bud Dupree, right? Bud Dupree, you lose him to a torn ACL against the Baltimore Ravens last year. I think it was week 12. And then in slides in Alex Highsmith, who they accounted for as the future anyways, because they drafted him in the 3rd round. And then he had 1.5 sacks last year. So Alex Highsmith to me is a Pro Bowl player. I already put that out there. And he's a guy who we saw last night what he can do when he rushes the passer. Now, he does have some mishaps in run fit integrity, especially with outside contain. He needs to do a better responsibility in terms of whether to box that running back inside instead of spilling it outside or vice versa. But there's some things there that can get coached up, and you see the potential in Alex Highsmith, number 56 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I really like him. But again, too many injuries on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The offensive line is still young. You have Dan Moore, blindside left tackle there. And you also have Kendrick Green. These guys are serviceable. They're getting better throughout time. The first 4 or 5 weeks, they've been horrible, downright awful. But they've been picking it up, getting some NFL experience, and you see them coming along well. I wouldn't say great, but well. All right, so when you take that into account and then you double down on my draft Chris, Najee Harris, he's putting up big numbers and getting hit behind the line of scrimmage despite his yards per carry average. I mean, if you watch every single Steelers game and every single snap played, you will notice and know what I'm talking about. The guy is just a monster. But having Chase Claypool back and having Deontay Johnson obviously putting up big numbers. You also obviously lost Juju Smith-Schuster and you need a 3-headed monster with that trio of wide receivers. He's now out, which prompted them to bring up Sims from the practice squad and then going after other players like Anthony Miller from the Chicago Bears, who was released. Then they had to sign him off the street. So again, there's a lot of issues there with the Pittsburgh Steelers to make me think that they're actually contenders. They're pretenders. They are pretenders, along with the Cleveland Browns, who, again, we all know what happened with Odell Beckham Jr., and Baker Mayfield is so inconsistent. I don't know what the heck the Cleveland Browns are doing this year. I don't know. I think they're pretenders. So, again, I think the AFC North is the Baltimore Ravens, and they're alone. All right. Now let's look at the AFC South. All right. The Tennessee Titans are still the standard in the AFC, in my opinion. I mean, they play tough, hard-nosed football. And despite what others may think or say, I mean, you lose King Henry. That's 90% of your offense. But again, they're still getting it done. And I still think in December and January playoff football, and a deep playoff run, you build your teams from the inside out, not the outside in. And using Mike Vrabel, a prime example of that, when he was with Bill Belichick with the New England Patriots, being that linebacker, he was known as a tough, hard-nosed, smart, heady player. And it's a direct reflection upon how his team is playing. You know, the next man up mentality is real, and they're still getting it done. They signed Adrian Peterson off the street, AP all day. Now, he's not the same player that he once was back in 2012 or 2013, but at the same time, you know, they're still in the thick of it. So I really like them. Tennessee Titans coming out on top in the AFC South as it currently stands. Now, which brings me to the wild card picture, right? So for those who don't know, the wild card picture has been expanded. In years past, it's been 12 teams, 6 from each conference. Last year, they changed it to 14 teams, which is 7 in each conference, with 3 wild card teams respectively. Same thing is happening this year. So when it comes to the AFC, this is how I see it shaking up. All right, so I think the Patriots right now are in the East, along with the Buffalo Bills. The West, that's going to be the Chiefs and the Chiefs alone. The AFC North is the Ravens. AFC South is the Titans. And then I just talked about my pretenders, who are not going to be basically second half. They're going to lose a lot of games, as Steelers and Browns. My wild card picture is a 4-team race for 3 playoff teams and wild card spots, I should say. And that's the Buffalo Bills, Indianapolis Colts, Cincinnati Bengals, and the Los Angeles Chargers. And here's my line of thinking. Here we are going into week 12, and I'm already thinking about week 13. What am I talking about that? Well, again, when I grade every single game, I can kind of picture how each game is going to play out leading into the following week. So, for instance, the big game that everyone should mark their calendars on is week 13. That's a huge week for a lot of these guys, a lot of these teams who are in tough spots. Why? Because if you look at the remaining schedule of these teams that are in the playoff hunt that I'm going to talk to you about, you will know that teams like the Buffalo Bills, Indianapolis Colts, Cincinnati Bengals, and the Los Angeles Chargers all have pretty tough schedules moving forward. Let's take it a step further, peeling back another layer that I need to get to the core, as I always like to say. The Los Angeles Chargers and the Indianapolis Colts. Those two teams, sorry, not Indianapolis. What am I saying? The Cincinnati Bengals and the Los Angeles Chargers. Let's go ahead and take that into account. That's a Week 13 matchup that's circled on my calendar right now, because ultimately the winner of that game could hold the tiebreaker for one of the wild card spots. One of those last wild card spots. And again, the Cincinnati Bengals, I mean, they have Joe Mixon, beast, Joe Herbert. How am I getting to Joe Burrow, beast, Jamar Chase, beast. You know, they still have Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, you name it. And then that defense, Trey Hendrickson's getting sacks on sacks on sacks on sacks on sacks. And you have Jesse Bates III, who is graded as a Pro Bowl level in my grading system for the second consecutive year on the back end. Should be a household name, is not. You have some pieces there, guys. You have some pieces there. So Cincinnati Bengals, Week 13, when the Cincinnati Bengals play the Los Angeles Chargers, that's a game that can ultimately be the tiebreaker for one of those last wild card spots if the records line up at the end of the year. And people can go back to that game and be like, oh, man, remember Week 13? Remember BEASTwriter said Week 13 on the BWF, that was a game to watch? That ultimately was a game that set one team home and packing while the other team continues to play on. All right, so if you look at Cincinnati Bengals' schedule, right, here's the remaining schedule, right? They have teams like the Denver Broncos. They have to face the San Francisco 49ers, the Baltimore Ravens, Kansas City Chiefs, and Cleveland Browns. How many of those are winnable games, guys, in the next 5? All right, now let's take it a step further, peeling back another layer of the onion to get to the core. Look at the Los Angeles Chargers. Who do they have? They have KC, Denver, and Las Vegas, all divisional games. Divisional games are very tough because everyone knows each other. Like, you cannot fool anyone off trick plays or anything like that. They know each other. They know what they're going to do. You kind of know going into that game how you're going to play them. And so those are tough games for Los Angeles Chargers. So there's no gimmicks here from here on out for the Cincinnati Bengals or Los Angeles Chargers. ultimately, I think those guys are going to be in the fighting for the last playoff berth, because I think the Buffalo Bills and I think the Indianapolis Colts are going to get in, whether they win the division or not, among with those 4 teams that I just mentioned. So that's 6 out of 7 teams that are already set in my estimation. And here I am saying it in going into week 12. I'm already setting my playoff picture already. My playoff bracket's already been set for the most part as far as the playoff teams. Now, the Buffalo Bills and the New England Patriots, they're going to be fighting for that top spot. But again, they're going to make one of those teams going to make the playoffs, or as a wild card team. Both of them will make the playoffs, but one's going to make it as a wild card team. So again, let's go ahead and move on now. Let's move on to the NFC West. All right. We got some nice comments coming in. I'm sorry I didn't get to your guys' comments. I'm just going ham right now. I just have a lot to say. Christopher doing so. I would love to see it. Maybe just let me see what I'm missing. Love your content, by the way. No hate, all over, brother. No, it's all good. It's all good. No, it's cool. There's no hate here. I mean, but then that's why you guys have me, so you guys can see and formulate your own analysis. You don't have to agree with me. In fact, I would welcome disagreement, because that's good. That's a good, healthy discussion. But when you do the research and grade every single snap played, I mean, who has the time to do it? Nobody. Even people who do this for a living don't have time to do it, or don't want to do it. But I do it. And that's why my YouTube live streams, when I hop on, I have a lot to say off the top of my head, because I'm just rambling things and I'm not looking, oh man, like looking up stat. No, I know it's all up here. It's all up here. Because when you grade every single snap and you can actually break it down for what it's worth, and then cross-check that with other teams around the league and what they're doing, now you're getting a pulse around the NFL and saying, hey, look, is Dio Lenore really that good compared to these other players who may not get a pass because of their status or where they were drafted, but at the same time, hey, some of these guys were drafted behind them. Look at Trey Norwood from the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Good nickelback, and he's been benched a few times, right? Arthur Mallette, number 35, was coming in at some time. But again, Trey Norwood, you see promise there. And he was drafted after Ambry Thomas. So again, you got to look at the landscape of the entire NFL, not just the team that they're rooting for, because again, anybody can compare players to players off their own roster. I'm saying take it for what it's worth, do the legwork, grade a player based on every single snap played. And that's why I say you're doing yourself a disservice, not you specifically, obviously, but I mean, people are doing themselves a disservice when they try to grade a player or put analysis on a player without actually grading every single snap. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's disrespectful to the player, and it's disrespectful to the fan base, because at the end of the day, you have to do the legwork. You have to put in that work. And there's a lot of man hours that go into watching coaches film. It's not easy. It's very tedious. It's very difficult. You have to know what to look for. And some things, there's a lot of fuga, right? There's fuga involved, which is fuck up the gray area. And I already talked about that with my man, Randy Mueller. So there's a lot of fuga involved. So then you have to cross-check with scouts, with coaches, and say, hey, look, this is what I'm seeing on this play. Is this what you're seeing? Whose assignment was this? Was he supposed to carry that tight end down the seam, or was he supposed to neglect that and hope that free safety picks him up and he was supposed to take that flat defender, right? So there's a lot of different things that go on there. But again, you guys can see where I'm formulating my analysis here. It's just not me pulling up a box score off ESPN and saying, oh yeah, Nick Bosa has 10 sacks. Oh wow, like he must be good. Like, yeah, he's good, but how is he in run support, right? So that's why I have my grading system. And again, this is just fun. Oh, I gotta say, this is fun. Mike Williams doesn't walk in with Fitzpatrick in the game. Yeah, that's very true. Luke Michelle says, where can I find your grading system? Well, I have a BEASTwriter Plus newsletter, and I post my grades all up in there. I'm going to restart that actually today. So if you want to see that, you can subscribe to my BEASTwriter Plus newsletter. It's actually on, I think it's on my YouTube channel. Not YouTube channel, excuse me, my Twitter bio. But if it's not, I can go ahead and I'll just post it right here. You just go to her. I'll just put it right here, so you guys can see where to get it. And then you guys can subscribe. It's a subscription-based model. And again, you guys can see what I have to say about that. All right. So with that being said, here we are. We're just going to move on and talk about some other things going on. And I went ahead and posted it. I posted actually on Twitch. How come I can't post it on Twitter? Anyways, go to BEASTwriterNFL.com and then you will find my subscription. All right, maybe I'll just post it right here. I'll just switch this up and I'll post it right here. So if you guys want to see my grades, I'm going to go ahead and put those up and you guys can see what I have to say. And obviously, if you guys have grades that you want on a player, let me know. Be like, hey, Beast, I want to know what your grade is for this specific player on this specific game. Obviously, you just go ahead and send me a Twitter. On Twitter, you can now, if you have iOS on Twitter, you can now Venmo me. If you guys have Venmo, you can Venmo me analysis or insight questions, whatever the case may be. And I can go ahead, and once I receive that Venmo payment, and then I can go ahead and formulate that grade for you. So again, there's a lot of hours that go into it, but again, I'll dedicate my time to where the money is. So if you guys want a grade on Dio Lenore, if you guys want a grade on Josh Norman, I will provide that grade, and then I'll break it down brick by brick as to why they have that grade. And again, you have to grade every single snap. You have to get the coach's film, and you have to really do the legwork in order to grade that player, because how can you say a player is doing well or doing bad without doing that legwork? It's impossible. And you're doing yourself and everyone else a disservice, in my opinion. But let's go ahead and talk about the NFC West. All right, we're going to talk about the NFC West. All right, it's probably the toughest division in all of football. All right, you got the Rams, you got the Cardinals, and you got the 49ers. Right, that's 3 teams that can actually come out of the NFC West. 3 playoff caliber teams. Yes, I'm calling the 49ers a playoff caliber team. Why? Well, if you look at their schedule, I think that the Cardinals are actually going to fall. I think because of their schedule, they're going to dip. I think the Rams are going to overtake the Cardinals and win the NFC West. That's my prediction right here as we enter Week 12. I think the Rams are actually going to come out on top and win the NFC West. All right. So I think the Rams are going to win the NFC West. I think the Cardinals are going to fight for that wild card spot along with the San Francisco 49ers. I know that sounds crazy, but let's look at the pretenders here, right? In the NFC, there's a lot of pretenders here in the NFC. I'm talking about Washington football team. Do I believe in Taylor Heineke? No, I don't. They lost Chase Young to a torn ACL. That's huge. Yes, they have Jonathan Allen, who's playing at an all-pro level in my grading system. In fact, there's no interior defensive lineman playing at a higher level outside of Cam Hayward, all right, and Aaron Donald. So with that being said, you look at a guy like Jonathan Allen, and he can be the plug in the middle. But again, you have Daron Payne from Alabama too. You have Montez Sweat there. There's a lot of different pieces. But again, when you guys look at it for what it's worth, there's not enough firepower. I mean, on the offense side of the football, you have Antonio Gibson, great. You have Brandon Scherf there, top 5 interior guard, great. You have Terry McLaurin, who should be a household name. Great. But outside of that, what really do you have? You don't have much. And if you can't move the chains and extend drives, I don't see that happening. I just don't see the Washington football team being a playoff contender. I think they're a pretender. I think the Minnesota Vikings, who the 49ers play next week, are pretenders. I think the Niners are going to come out on top. If you look at the Minnesota Vikings schedule, it's not very strong. I mean, it's not very strong. It's hard. It's tough to win those games on the remaining schedule. So I think the Niners are going to come out on top against the Minnesota Vikings. Don't sweat it, Niner fans. I got you covered. I'm saying the Niners are going to win that game against the Minnesota Vikings. I don't even think well, it's going to be a game. I shouldn't say it's not going to be a game. If, in fact, I don't know what the line is right now, but if I had to take a guess, I think the Niners would be favored by maybe 3.5, maybe 4 points. And I think the over-under will probably be set at I think the over-under might be set at 51. I'm not sure what it is. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. I haven't even looked at the lines yet, but I think the over-under might be set at 51. I think it might be a 27-24 ball game. I think the line's going to be no more than 3.5, 4 points. If it's anything higher than that, I'm going to, as we hit the midweek point, I'm going to go ahead and make an analysis on that. But again, I just don't see the Minnesota Vikings being a playoff contender. I don't think the New Orleans Saints are going to be a playoff contender. Anytime you lose Jameis Winston, right? You're not a playoff contender because look at who they have at quarterback. They're not going to be able to sustain drives. And as good as that defense is, you got Cam Jordan, again, playing at a first-team All-Pro level in my grading system. But again, Quan Alexander is okay. He's decent. But again, that secondary to me is overrated. I think Marcus Lattimore is overrated. Marshawn Lattimore, I should say. I think Marcus Williams is a little bit overrated. They do have Demario Davis, who's a beast, who's criminally underrated. But again, at the same time, it's just I just don't see them being contenders, especially coming out of the NFC South. So I don't think they're a contender. I don't think the Carolina Panthers are contenders. Yeah, they have Cam Newton, and I think that's the talk of the town right now. But again, you have guys like DJ Moore. Okay, DJ Moore is a great top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. He should be in line for a Pro Bowl berth. I said that in my I was in my pre-draft analysis because I was talking about needs and stuff, and Powell said DJ Moore is the real deal, even though they lost Curtis Samuel, who went to the Washington football team, who's kind of used like Deebo Samuel, right? So again, I just feel like the Carolina Panthers just don't have what it takes. Now they have Christian McCaffrey, who just balled out of control. If you're a fantasy football owner, you know what I'm talking about. The guy put up gaudy numbers, had a receiving touchdown, and was making tacklers miss left and right. I graded every single snap of that game. Brian Burns is a beast, top 10 edge in my grading system. So Hassan Reddick, obviously, he ranked third in sacks this year. So Hassan Reddick for the second year in a row, last year with the Arizona Cardinals, now with the Carolina Panthers, signed that 1 year prove it deal. He's actually balling out of control. So yeah, they have pieces in place, but I just don't see enough out of them to actually leapfrog the San Francisco 49ers or the Arizona Cardinals, right? I mean, Arizona Cardinals had the best record in all of football, right? At 9-2. So I don't see them moving the needle much, even if they lose some of these games toward the end of the year, because again, all they have to win really is 2-3 games, and they'll be right in the thick of it. So that's why I say 3 NFC West teams are going to make the playoffs. I think the Niners are going to be one of them. So I think there's a lot of hope there. I think that I actually had a discussion with Mike Silver. If you guys don't know who Mike Silver is, Michael Silver on Twitter, he said, the Niners are back and they're going to be really interesting, right? And I tweeted Mike and I said, you know what? Yeah, but they're playing the Jags. And then he says, yeah. And then he chimes back on Twitter and says, yeah, but he said, that's true. They are playing the Jags, but it seems like, they're back in the group of things. I said, yeah, no, you're right. They got that swagger back. So we both agree that they're a playoff contender. I think that as of right now, obviously they have a tough schedule ahead. But again, if you can get Dre Greenlaw back, team up with Azeez Al-Shaair and Fred Warner, that's one of the best trio of linebackers that you will find in the NFL. All right. And then you get some healthy horses back. Obviously, you can get Elijah Mitchell back with that broken finger or that fractured finger, whatever surgery they had to do on that finger. You get him back. Team's looking strong. You already have Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle's hitting his midseason stride. Yeah, you don't have right tackle Mike McGlinchey, but the offensive line can get it done because Kyle Shanahan's one of the smartest offensive coordinators in the entire NFL. So you're set. So that's why I say it's going to be a race for the wildcard spot between two teams in the NFC West. And that's going to come down to the Arizona Cardinals and San Francisco 49ers. I think both those teams will ultimately win, be a wild card spot and get a wild card spot in the NFC, because again, I think the Rams are going to win the NFC West. I think the NFC East is going to come down to the Dallas Cowboys. I think that's the division. They're going to win that convincingly. I think the NFC North, in the NFC North, I believe that the Green Bay Packers are going to win that division. And the NFC South, obviously, have the reigning champs, Tampa Bay Bucks. So again, the 3 wild card spots really comes down to Arizona, San Francisco, and again, don't sleep on the Philadelphia Eagles with Devonta Smith. They got obviously Landon Dickerson healthy, and he's back. Roll Tide, roll Alabama products. You guys know what I had to say in my pre-draft analysis on why I gave the Eagles a grade of an A for their draft picks, and I thought they hit home run threats there. And again, Jalen Hurts, who's just scored 3 rushing touchdowns, I should say, and they have a Dallas Goedert's there. So there's a lot of guys there who really can make plays on the football. And I really like what they have on that team. Darius Big Play Slay, you see him with that 80-yard fumble return. Then he had a pick 6 the following week. I mean, come on, that's just amazing. Avonte Maddox just got an extension, I believe. So there's a lot of things that are happening here. They have a great offensive line, not great offensive line, but they have a stable offensive line. And obviously that defensive line is stout with Javon Hargrave, Fletcher Cox. I think he forced the fumble in yesterday's game. So a lot of good things to come out of Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia is going to make the playoffs. Sounds crazy, right? I don't know. So that's who I have in the hunt. So I don't know what you guys have to say about that, but let's read their comments. There's a lot of stuff going on. Let me just pull up the comments. All right. So that being said, all right. Mariah says, what's up, Ryan? Hope you're well, my friend. I'm doing well. Thank you so much. Appreciate the love and support. CNAT says, great info, Beast. Will Ayuk continue to see 5+ targets and end zone looks going forward? What led to his recent productive increase? I talked about this when it came to Brandon Ayuk, and I said he was in the doghouse, and I think that was a motivational tactic for Kyle Shanahan to kind of get it out of him. I mean, let's face it, Trent Sherfield, everyone was like, oh, yeah, Trent Sherfield's the real deal. And I was like, nah, man, I think that's just a motivational tactic from a coach's perspective to kind of push Brandon Ayuk. I think he got complacent. I don't think he was maybe not trying as hard in practice or whatever the case may be. But, once you light a fire under a person who has a high draft status, especially a guy like Brandon Ayuk, who they traded up in the first round, which I didn't like the pick. But I shouldn't say I didn't like the pick. I liked the pick, but I thought they should have went after Justin Jefferson. You all know how I said that. But getting back to Brandon Ayuk, I mean, he's on my fantasy football team for a reason. I think the guy's was gonna ball out this year. And I said, you know what? In the second half of the season, him and George Kittle are gonna ball out, and that's exactly what you're seeing. So why the increase? It's just he's getting more reps. I mean, if you think about it, if you cannot do anything from the sideline, you can't ride the pine and expect results, right? You can't ride the pine, sit with the coach and be like, oh man, like, how come I'm not getting? It's just that's the coach's decision, and you can't put that on the player because he can't put himself in the game. But what you can do is you can go into practice with another line of thinking, saying, hey, look, like I may be a first round pick, but Kyle Shanahan ain't playing around, man. Like even though I'm a first round pick, there's no gimmies here. And I got to really show out and put out every single week, whether it be a downfield blocker as a wide receiver or whether it's running routes, catching footballs and making sure that I hold on to the football, not fumbling it, because at the end of the day, ball security is of the utmost importance in San Francisco. So that's why you're seeing more reps for Brandon Ayuk, and that's why you're seeing his production increase. Is not so much that he never had the potential to do it. We saw what he could do last year, but at the end of the day, it's like I think that was more of a motivational tactic from Kyle Shanahan, and I don't care what Kyle Shanahan says, because at the end of the day, man, I remember his press conference when he said a question was asked, oh, why is Trent Sherfield playing ahead of Brandon Ayuk? And his response was, well, Trent Sherfield doesn't make it easy for Brandon Ayuk to unseat him. And I'm thinking, like, you know what, that's kind of BS, dude. Like, anybody who knows football knows Brandon Ayuk is a better player than Trent Sherfield. Like, preseason was preseason, bro. You're going against 2s and 3s. What do you expect? All right. Anyways, that's my thinking. That's my thinking. Havelock 6927. Has anyone else noticed that the top NFC teams keep losing to good AFC teams? No. I think there are a lot of people that have been thinking that. Tommy Huxley, what's up? If it's your favorite musician, yes, Tommy, how you doing? Musician chef, yes, you need to hop on the show and play some music for us. Havoc says, Ram to lose to almost every good physical team at this point. You know what I think, here's the thing with that. I think Raheem Morris is smart enough to make some adjustments, right? I think he's going to be able to use a bare front. I think what happened in the Rams game, and again, I graded every single snap of that game, and I didn't actually have a chance to go ahead and talk about that, but I'm going to go ahead and do it here, is there's only a handful of plays where runs were ran toward Aaron Donald's side. So what you saw Aaron Donald lined up on the right side, then they'll run to the left, or vice versa, line up on the left side, then they'll run to the right. And then usually what they did early on is Raheem Morris actually lined up in a stack formation with Von Miller on the same side as Aaron Donald. And then you'll see once he started to figure out that, hey, they're running away from Aaron Donald, they had to shift over and switch Leonard Floyd from one side to the opposite side, to Aaron Donald's side, and switch Von Miller to the opposite side so they can kind of even out the formation in their favor. And so kind of balancing it out. So that didn't work either. So I think what happened and what you saw was not necessarily a team that not only dominated the Rams off defensive line, but you saw a game of chess there. You saw these offensive coordinators like Kyle Shanahan say, hey, look, we can impose our will, not so much be dominant at the line of scrimmage, but we can leverage our splits to where we can make it easier for our offensive linemen. Because let's face it, if it was a power run-based run scheme, they would get eaten alive by that Rams front. But then the Niners don't do that. They run a zone blocking scheme, so they can leverage their splits and they know where they're going. So the defense has to play catch up, and they're always a half second behind or a split second behind. And what you do there is you spread the Rams defense horizontally as opposed to vertically. And now you can kind of make life easier for the running back to hit that cutback lane, because it's a one cutback system, right? It's not like a power based run scheme where you have to have a running back like a Najee Harris to sit back there and see the hole and hit the hole based on his instincts, right? The hole's already dictated for you by Kyle Shanahan's zone blocking scheme. So I think what you're going to see in the second half of the season when the two teams match up again is you're going to see the Rams defense actually use more of like a bare front and say, you know what, we're just going to sell it on the run, and we're going to dare Jimmy Garoppolo to beat me on top. And if you have Deebo Samuel there, odds are it's going to be a run. So if I was a defensive coordinator, I would sell out on the run, because 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a running play anyways. And if it is a pass play, we're going to account for that by having maybe a robber scheme, incorporate some type of a robber scheme to where we're putting eye eyes on the quarterback or wherever that's, if it's a whole player, whatever the case may be. And so now we're taking that into account. So if someone does try to leak out like a Kyle Juszczyk or something like that, an I formation, offset I, power I, whatever the case may be, you can kind of account for that. And so that way that won't be wide open when Kyle Juszczyk or a tight end leaks out the other way. So again, these are things that you have to look for. And these are things that I kind of anticipate moving forward, because again, Deebo Samuel was a leading rusher in yesterday's game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And you saw what he can do without catching the football. And I think what teams are now going to do is they're going to say, you know what? Okay, Deebo Samuel, you want to be back there? Cool. We're just going to stop the run. And if you try to throw it, we're going to account for that too. If you try to run the reverse, we're going to account for that too. We're going to have guys who are on the outside fast enough to stay home. So again, you're going to see a lot of personnel changes, I think, when it comes to the San Francisco 49ers moving forward. Because right now, the 49ers have the upper hand, and Kyle Shanahan has the upper hand, because he can say, hey, look, we can line up Deebo Samuel wide and then put him out in the backfield pre-snap. And what you're doing now is now you're forcing the issue on the defensive lineman to make the adjustments on the fly. What you can do is you can say, okay, we're going into the snap anticipating that Deebo Samuel is going to do that. And then if he doesn't do that, then we're going to account for that too. So you have a plan A, plan B option pre-snap. There's a lot of window shopping when it comes to Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, you name it, right? But at the end of the day, if you can pick up tendencies and down and distance and how they kind of like to use Deebo Samuel in that running game, you're going to see a lot of different things that you can do and kind of just key in and make life simple for the defensive front up front. Yeah. A lot to talk about. I can just go on and on and on. We're on almost an hour and I have a lot to talk about. And we still have a lot to talk about. Tony Nagatani said, how do you think the Vikings offense line is? It's okay. I mean, the Vikings offensive line, like I said, if you saw my YouTube podcast, I don't want to call it YouTube podcast, my YouTube video, you will know that I already talked about it. The offensive line is okay. It's good, because I mean, look at what Dalvin Cook is doing, right? Look at what Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, right? He's getting his yards. I mean, Justin Jefferson to me is a first team All Pro all day, every day. So he makes contested catches at the catch point. I like what they're trying to do there. Kirk Cousins, obviously, I'm not high on Kirk Cousins. I don't know why so many people are on your Kyle Shanahan. Every time Vikings, the first thing that comes to mind is Kirk Cousins. What do you think, Kirk Cousins? What do you think? It's like, yeah, he's good, but he's not like great. Like, I don't see it. I don't know. So anyways, the offensive line is good, I think, but I don't think they're going to pose a problem for the San Francisco 49ers. I think Nick Bosa, hey man, let's face it, Eric Armstead needs to show up. I mean, he has done absolutely nothing for the last 2 years, ever since his contract year, and he signed that big contract back in 2020. And so when they let DeForest Buckner walk. So, I mean, he has to step up to the plate. I ultimately anticipate him to do so, because I think he has the talent to do so. They need to kick him in full time to defensive tackle. I mean, that's his bread and butter. I think if you do that, Eric Armstead will have success. If you put him out on the edge, I think that's doing yourself a disservice. I think you have to roll with DeForest Buckner, or not DeForest Buckner. I wish we had DeForest Buckner, with Eric Armstead taking on that defensive tackle role, because he can definitely do that and do that at a very high level. John Zach says Carolina will probably be the last wild card. Ooh, I don't think so, man. I think it might be the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Philadelphia Eagles, based on their schedule, have a little bit of a better schedule than the Carolina Panthers. And again, what it comes down to is you have to look at the dynamics of the season. Each season has its own identity, as I always say in the BWF. I think the Philadelphia Eagles will definitely be right in the thick of it. I think ultimately it's going to come down to the Philadelphia Eagles, Cardinals, and Niners for that last wild card spot. And I guess you can throw in the Carolina Panthers for that last wild card spot, because again, 3 teams make it this year instead of 2, just like last year. Tony Nagatani says, tell Mike Silver to grow a thicker skin and to unblock folks like me. What did you say, Tony Nagatani, to Mike Silver? I want to know what you said. I'll definitely tell him. I'll give him a heads up. I'll be like, hey, man, my man Tony, you must have said something, though, Tony. I mean, he doesn't block people for no reason. I don't think he does. But what did he say? What did Mike Silver say to you that makes you that made him block you? I want to know. You probably said something about the Niners and he said something back, or I don't know. I'm guessing. But that'd be interesting, Tony. I want to know your story. Best base defense linebackers, Greenlaw, Shire, and Warner. Yeah. JP says, just subscribed finally. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate the love. Jean Paul Edward de Dios says, subscribe to my newsletter. I will go ahead and post this up on the newsletter so you guys can kind of see what I had to say. Also, I'm going to be talking again, if you guys want grades on a certain player, again, I have my own grading system where I grade the best players, or I should say the important players around the NFL. But if you have someone you want, like if you have a family friend or something, or you just were looking out PFF and like, hey, what do you want? Well, if you pay me, obviously I can run those grades for you. But again, time is money, money is time. So again, to keep us on schedule, this is how we do it. And I like doing my grading system, and I like having that in place because, again, how are you going to put a grade on a player, or how are you going to criticize or praise a player without grading every single snap played? And I'm not just talking one game. I'm talking about every single game, right? You have to do that legwork, man. You have to do it. And I challenge everyone to do that because, again, if you're not going to do it, then there is no substance for you to criticize or praise a player. Like, you can't just say, look off the box score and be like, oh, Deebo Samuel has 91 catches for 982 yards and 5 touchdowns and 2 fumbles lost. And wow, he's having a first team all pro level. Like, what else does he bring to the table? How is he blocking? Is he a good run blocker? Does he spring his teammates for extra yards? Does he run good routes? Those routes that he got open on, was that a byproduct of the offense? Was it part of Fuga? Was it part of maybe someone else taking on that safety over the top that allowed him to run that over route? I mean, these are different things you have to look for, but in order to format that analysis, you really have to do the legwork, bro. And that's what I love doing. Tommy Huxley says, thoughts on Trey Sermon on this game? I think he should be number 2, not Fumble Wilson Jr. I like Trey Sermon. I wrote on my BEASTwriter Plus newsletter that he would go over 1,000 yards if he was going to get the lion's share of the reps. If he was going to get the lion's share of the reps, he obviously didn't, but I like Trey Sermon. I thought he should be the number 2 back all along, but number 3 back behind Elijah Mitchell, but yeah, it is what it is. Jampa Diaz, I agree with the Rams. They have an easier schedule. They do. John Zach says Sermon looks better than Wilson right now. 2 weeks back from injury. He's not like he was. Yep. Aaron Harris says, do you ever appear on other people's podcast? Yes, I do appear on other people's podcasts. I haven't lately because I've been sick, but I do come on other people's podcasts. I'm actually going to go on a Chicago Bears podcast as I cover all 32. It's not just the Niners. It's not just the Steelers. It's not just the Rams, whatever the case may be. I cover all 32 now. So for those who don't know or are just new to follow me, I was a beat writer with the Niners from 2013 to 2018. And then from 2019 I covered the Steelers, switched over to the Steelers. And then from 2020 during COVID to now, I cover the entire NFL remotely, straight from the comfort of my own home. That's how I like to do it. I don't want to cover one specific team anymore. I want to be able to branch out and cover all 32 because, again, it's what I've been doing all along, even when I covered the Niners, because how I formulate my mock drafts and was doing well with my mock drafts is you have to know the landscape of all 32 NFL teams, their tendencies, the GMs, the scouting department, who they favor, who they don't favor. And in order to do that, you really have to watch every single game throughout the season. You can't just do the legwork and be like, oh, these are the team's needs based on blah, blah, blah. And this is what I think. No, it doesn't work that way. I actually have grades on players, and that's how I formulate that. So I do hop on, which is why I'm hopping on the Chicago Bears podcast, because they know I talk about the Chicago Bears along with every other NFL team. So yes, I do that. If you have any suggestions, Aaron, I'll be more than happy to hop on those podcasts, but I've been sick for the past week and a half, so haven't really been able to do that. Jean Paul Edward de Dios, I'll be looking for your take on Isaiah Simmons. All right. Well, if you want Isaiah Simmons, I can get grades on that. I did grade the first half of the season. First 4 games, I should say, first quarter of the season. Yeah. Well, what's 17 games now, but you guys get the picture. He's graded average. He was about an average player. But if you want the full rundown on the upcoming season, yeah, send me those super chats and super stickers, and I'll go ahead and get those grades out to you. Tommy says, Tony wants all the smoke. Tony says, back during the end of Harbaugh era, and I hadn't heard of Mike Silver before. I asked him if he was a credible source because Balky was leaking like crazy and fans didn't know what to believe. Oh, there's a lot. Okay, well, let me just say this because I covered, obviously, I just told you I covered Niner from 2013 to 2018. But before that, even take it a step further, I started covering the 49ers in general back in 2012 for Fansided Network. I was actually the editor of the Fansided Network's page, Niner Noise, and we were really small back then, and that's how I kind of got my big break. But anyways, getting back to Jim Harbaugh, There was a lot of leaks, man. I mean, I was really toxic. I remember back in 2014, I would go in the office. I'd go in the office at 8 a.m. It's like, I need my coffee right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I need my coffee. Like, I need my coffee. I need my coffee. And so I would just hear things like in passing. I'm like, man, is this really going on? Is this a joke? Should I report this? Should I not report this? I'm just like, because I was usually the first one there. I would get my AM workout in. I'd do my fasted cardio. As you guys know, I compete. And so I'd be one of the first ones there. Actually, I would literally always be the first one there. And so I was there and I was just like, man, like, what am I like? What do I do? And just like, there is a lot of leaks. I'll just say that there is a lot of leaks for a reason. I was there 24/7 shit. And it's really interesting because it was really toxic. It was just, it was one of the most toxic times. And I would say this, I of all the years covering the San Francisco 49ers and all the coaches, I would say Jim Harbaugh was by far the most entertaining and the most fun. Till this day, Jim Harbaugh to me is the best 49ers coach that I have covered, which goes, it's going to be a toss up between Kyle Shanahan and Jim Harbaugh, but give me Jim Harbaugh every day, any day of the week. Now, is he a little bit extra? Yes, he's definitely extra, but he was always entertaining. Tommy Huxley say Rams are losing to the Slackers. All right, so let's go here. Thank you so much for the super chat and super sticker. If you guys like what I had to say, please send me those super chat and super stickers. I like talking football. I'm just going to keep on doing it because I love doing it. All right, Jean Paul Edward Didio says, I'll wait for the season ends to commission analysis on Zealand to get a good idea of his growth. All right, there you go. I like it. We got some more stuff here. We got What's Up G says 49ers are 4 games behind Arizona, essentially 5 losing head-to-head tiebreaker with 7 games left in the season. Yeah, that is exactly true. But hey, there's 7 wildcard teams, and I think the San Francisco 49ers are ultimately going to get that last wildcard spot. I think there's going to be 3 teams coming out of the NFC West. Maybe because I'm a homer. I don't like to call myself a homer, but I guess I am biased in this situation because, again, when you look at it, it looks bleak. But hey, I mean, Drake Greenlaw's coming back. Defense wins championships. You team him up with Aziz Al-Shaair with Fred Warner coming back. You obviously had Jaquiski Tartt coming back yesterday. And then you team up with Jimmy Ward. So the team's getting their healthy horses back. For me, it comes down to execution. It comes down to Kyle Shanahan not putting his ego aside and saying, hey, look, as much as we want to pass the ball, let's dominate down in the trenches and run the football. Go back to basics. Let's do what we did against the Rams. Let's kind of continue that. Take the pressure off Jimmy Garoppolo so he doesn't have to throw it 30, 35 times and win it with his arm. Let's go ahead and go back to basics, and we can win football games that way. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think that's what can happen. Tommy Huxley says, Harbaugh was snarky with the media. He wasn't snarky with me, though. He liked me. Jim Harbaugh, I got a story for you. His last game with San Francisco 49ers, he comes up to me and says, you know what? I just want to say I really like you. And he's like, oh. He's like, yeah, you ask good questions. I said, oh, thank you. And then he says, not only that, he says, and you agree with me. You always nod your head. And I was looking at him. I was like, man, I knew you would say that. Nah. Jim Harbaugh, I love Jim Harbaugh. If I could go back in time, I would say, man, just keep Jim Harbaugh, bro. Because he won 3 straight NFC championship games. Who's got it better than us? You cannot tell me there was not a coach during that time frame who was a better coach in the NFL. Jim Harbaugh was the coach. Now, was it toxic? Absolutely. But he won football games. In fact, I have friends who played for him at Stanford. I'm not going to name the players on Stanford's football team, but there were some star players, on Stanford and the 49ers, so I'm not going to name, but they're star players. And when I say star players, they're probably like Hall of Fame players or borderline Hall of Fame players or even in college, right? So they all said one thing. They said Jim Harbaugh was just weird. He's just weird. He's just a weird dude. Like weird, but he won football games. He knew what he was talking about. And they always said he was the best coach that they had because they won and they got it done. And I don't care about his personality. He might be a little off sometimes, but the guy's a winner. And you cannot 3 straight NFC championship games, bro. What has Kyle Shanahan done? 1 year where he went to the Super Bowl, and then his record, what was it? Tied with Chip Kelly, right? In percentage. Although in all fairness, I think Kyle Shanahan is a way better coach than Chip Kelly. No offense to you, Chip Kelly. But yeah. But Jim Harbaugh, hands down. Illinois says, I thought Eric, longest rambling questions ever branch, would have been the first into work every morning. No, it was always me. I was always turning on the lights. If you watch all my Instagram stories, I would be the first one in, first one out, sometimes the last one out. And it would be me, and then it would be Grant Cohn, Barrows. Oh no, me, Grant Cohn, Mayoko, Barrows, Wagner. Oh no, Biederman, then Wagner. Usually, not in that. I mean, that order might be a little bit off, but replaying it through my head, I remember, because I know on my side of our office, so if you guys don't know the media workroom or where we work, we call it the media workroom, but it's kind of like our office. It's kind of like where we work. We have 24/7 access to the stadium, so we come in through the side door, right where the 49ers helmet is outside. We have a key card and everything. That's what this is, the key card. But anyways, so you go in through the side door, and just like any other office, any other corporate America here in Silicon Valley, you have a key card. You can get in, get out, wherever your case. You go over on the Levi Stadium. Woohoo! But no, we go in, and on my side, it was me, Mayoko. It was divided into two halves, and we got to choose where we wanted to sit. And on my side, it was me, Mayoko, Barrows, and Mindy Bach. And then on the flip side of that was Biederman, Wagner, Lombardi, Tim Kawakami, my man TK, Cam Inman, Grant, Jennifer, and Tracy. So it was like 3 on one side or 4 on one side, and then everyone. It just happened to be that way. It was crazy. And then Jerry Rice, not this picture, because Jerry Rice is actually right directly behind me. It was kind of cool. It's like he was watching over me. But no, that's kind of how it was. But no, going into the office at Jim Harbaugh there, that was always interesting. It's always fun. It's always fun. All right, let's see what else we got here. Lunar Mystic says, crazy how Jim never had a losing record, then lost his job quick, and Kyle had 4 losing seasons out of his 5 and got an extension. You know what? It comes down to the owner not getting along with Jim Harbaugh, and Jim Harbaugh not getting along with the owner. In fact, I remember during practice that Jim Harbaugh always wanted more. He always wanted the best tackling dummies. He always wanted an extra scoreboard. He always wanted this. He always wanted that. And he got it. And they won with it. So, and then aside from that, it was almost like the players always told me whether he played college or in Bell, I kind of wore out his welcome there. And yes, there is some truth to that, because I think that's some kind of wear out your welcome. But at the end of the day, the guy was a winner, man. That's what it comes down to. He always admitted it. He won. He won football. You're not in it to win it. What are you in it for? To lose it? No. So that's kind of like the thing with that is all right. Let's see here. Hold on. Audio was off. Hopefully my audio is better. If you guys don't know my audio, is it better, or is it better now? People are saying they're getting static, so I'm not sure if you guys were getting static. Is it better now, or is it not better? I just checked it, so let's see. All right, so let's go here. It says Milfund says Grant Coates said Trey was as good as Jimmy in August. Cone says 49ers playing Debo at running back to devalue him and make him worth less for a second contract. Ooh. I don't think that's the case. Honestly, I don't think that's the case. Here's what I'm hearing, and here's what I'm seeing, right? There's things that you hear and there's things that you see. What I'm hearing and what I'm seeing is they're using Deebo Samuel in that role simply because they were out of options. And they knew that if you're a coach and I coached, you're gonna want to put your players in the best position to make plays. So why not a better way to do that than to put Deebo Samuel at running back? You're not going to pay him like a running back. In fact, I think instead of devaluing Deebo Samuel, I think you're increasing his value because now he's not a one-trick pony. He's not a guy that you simply can say, let's line him up at the X, Y, Z receiver, line up in the slot and see what he can do. In fact, you're actually increasing his value because now you're saying, hey, we can line him up behind center. We can line him up in a wildcat. We can line him up in an end around. We can do a lot of jet sweeps with them. We can line him up just like Curtis Samuel is. And look what Curtis Samuel got with the Washington football team, right? And he was not even the top wide receiver on the Carolina Panthers before signing that deal with the Washington football team, which I talked about here on YouTube. So I don't want to say I disagree with that, but I would question it because I think the more you can do, the more valuable you'll be. And I talked about this with my man GM Randy Mueller, right? 2000 GM of the year. The more you can do, the better off you'll be. And he agreed with that. And so I think when you take that line of thinking and saying you're going to put a player in a position to where he's going to be devalued because you're in that position, the inverse could be said of actually increasing his value because at the end of the day, the more you can do, the more valuable you are with the team, which then now you have to go into Wednesday, Thursday practice accounting for what Deebo Samuel will do and will not do leading up to that week. So now you have to take a portion of your practice to kind of implement situational football to where, hey, if Deebo Samuel lines up in a wildcat, this is how we're going to play it. Or if he lines up outside and then lines up in the backfield, this is how we're going to play it. If you don't do that, and if he wasn't accounting for that as maybe a fear factor for the defensive coordinators and you just line them up wide, well, then there's less to prep for. But then because you're doing more with Deebo Samuel, now you're increasing his value because now if you're his agent, you're sitting at the tail, but like, hey, look, Deebo Samuel is used in a variety of roles. He's second in the NFL in receiving right now, and he's running the football. That's like saying Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara are going to be devalued because of their dual threat ability. I think you're increasing their value, right? I think, and the inverse could be said of guys like Curtis Samuel, who are typical wide receivers on the box score, but they do a multitude of different things. So it's an interesting take, but I would say he's increasing his value. I would say he's increasing his value, not decreasing his value, but to each their own, right? So there's points for Grant where he's saying that, and that could be his opinion on it, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion. And he could be right. I could be wrong. Who knows? He could be right. I could be wrong. But I just think if I was going to roll one way or the other, I would say, Kyle Shanahan's actually increasing his value as opposed to decreasing his value. Because again, look at Curtis Samuel. Look at Cordell Patterson with the Atlanta Falcons. Look what he's doing. He was with the Minnesota Vikings, first-round pick. He was with the New England Patriots, Chicago Bears. He's not even a one-trick pony as a return man, but can do a variety of different things. And again, if you're going to talk about all 32 NFL teams, you have to look at the landscape of the entire NFL. And again, in order to do that, you really have to peel back layers of the onion to get to the core and grade every single snap played and watch not only the team that you're covering or that you're rooting for, but the entire NFL. And that's why after this podcast, I'm going to be watching the Cleveland Browns game because I just covered the Buffalo Bills, Indianapolis Colts game, and then I'll be moving on to the Cincinnati Bengals game and so forth. So yeah, that's just my opinion. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Kim Ferrison says, what's up, Beast? Long time no talk. I think Deebo's the hardest guy to tackle in the whole NFL. He's definitely one of the hardest guys to tackle in the entire NFL. And I would agree with you. Kim Ferrison, my man from Hofstra University, recruit. And the program no longer exists. But always good talking to you, Kim. I love talking to you. And let's talk about Deebo Samuel being the hardest hardest guy to tackle in the NFL. Yes, he's one of them. I would say Javonte Williams is another one. Javonte Williams from the Denver Broncos is a bowling pin. I said it in my pre-draft analysis out of North Carolina. I thought he was a guy. Also, Michael Carter, another bowling pin type of a guy, right? His teammate. So these guys also are in that line of thinking. Obviously, Derrick Henry. I mean, you can't question Derrick Henry, what he could do when healthy. Christian McCaffrey, he's hard to tackle. I mean, just watch yesterday's game. I mean, I put on the real tape, and he forced 10 missed tackles, whether it be receiving or running the football. So I would put Christian McCaffrey in that category. Obviously, I would say Najee Harris. Najee Harris is another guy that gets hit after contact behind the line of scrimmage, still makes positive yards after initial contact. So these are guys that have good contact balance at the end of the day. That means they have good core functional strength. How you tie that into fitness and fitness gains is these guys have good core strength. And in order to do that, that's where you can kind of get the agility going into play, the short area quickness, and so forth. So a lot of different things that you can talk about when it comes to Deebo Samuel's game. And again, the Niners would be wise to extend him long term because, as I tweeted it out yesterday during the game, he's in a contract year in 2022. Barry Abala said, I wouldn't want to tackle A.J. Dillon. What about Jonathan Taylor? I wouldn't want to tackle Jonathan Taylor. If you follow me on Twitter, I tweeted that out, man. I talked about it earlier on this YouTube live stream. You know, Jonathan Taylor is the real deal. I said it in my pre-draft analysis, call him a first-round pick. People were laughing at me. Here he is. Leads the NFL in rushing. Leads the NFL in touchdowns. Had 5 touchdowns yesterday, third youngest in history to do so. And really putting on show this year. John Zach says different types of hard to tackle shifty guys like CMC Swift or lower than shoulder guys Najee and Henry. Yeah. But a forced tackle is a forced tackle. A forced missed tackle is a forced missed tackle. Whether it's shifty or whether it's running through a guy, it's still all the same. It's still a missed tackle at the end of the day. And so that's how I look at it. I don't look at it as two different types of forced missed tackles. It's better if I'm shifty and I can just avoid you altogether with my quickness. But at the end of the day, I can just run right to you too. So forced missed tackles are forced missed tackles in my book. I don't decipher between the two. I just think it's one of the same. But let's see here. All right, so I think we're good on audio. My audio was bad, but I think my audio is back. My audio is back up. But anyways, that's pretty much it for this podcast. I hope you guys had what I like to say. If you did, please hit the subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner of your screen as you stay up to date on all things Beast in real time. Also, if you guys have yet to subscribe to my BEASTwriter NFL newsletter, go ahead and do so at BEASTwriterNFL.com, www.BEASTwriterNFL.com. Make sure you put the www in front of it, and you'll be good to go. All right, so I think we're going to wrap this up. Milfiner says, fix your audio and Trenon. All right, so I think we're good. Are we good right now? I think we're good. John Zach says you're good. Okay. John Paul Edwards says Swifty running backs are hard to tackle since you got to get a hold of them first. That's very true. That's very true. And again, you look at the landscape around the NFL, James Conner. John Paul Edwards Dios is an Arizona Cardinals fan, and he loves James Conner. I'm sure he loving James. I shouldn't say he loves James Conner, but I'm sure you love James Conner because of what he's doing. Guy's having a bounce back year this year. Happy for him. But also glad that the Steelers decided not to resign him because I don't know. I just think he's overrated. But he's having a great year this year. Prove me wrong, James Conner. But yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, guys, that'll be it for this podcast. I hope you guys had a lot of fun. We'll be doing this tomorrow for Taco Tuesdays on our live stream. Hopefully we can have Jerry Yang back on the show. You guys know who Jerry Yang is. We're going to talk about the entire NFL. We're going to talk about the Niners, obviously, talk about the Seahawks, how it's going to impact the NFC West, along with the AFC East and all divisions in between. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you guys had a lot of fun. I know I did. That's it for today. We are going to come out of this really hot. John Zach says 12 touchdowns for Connor, like, geez, all red zone. Yeah. Lunar Mystic says Eric Armstead has 2 sacks this season. Solomon Thomas has 3.5. Eric is overrated. Yes, he is. I said it since day one. Where are you, Eric Armstead? Well, he's been off the grid. What is he in? He was drafted in 2015? 2015. So 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 20. So in 6.5 years, he only came at me one of those years because he only showed up in one of those years. I'll take that any day of the week. That means if he has a good second half of the season and turns it on, well, you still have 4 years. Oh, no, you still have 5 years, 5 good years to make up all those years, all those previous years just to break even. So I think I'm winning this one. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you guys had a lot of fun. Melf Hunter, thank you so much for the super chat and super sticker. Says Eli Mitchell equals Garrison Hearst, explosive and hurt. Oh, wow. If you guys don't know who Garrison Hearst is, he's one of my favorite running backs of all time. For the San Francisco, actually of all time, actually. He was there during the Mooch days. His nickname was Snoopy. He had Fred Beasley, number 40, who was paving the way for him. Obviously, on that offensive line, they had Derek Deese, who's also his son, plays for San Jose State, is a tight end, as a top tight end coming out of the draft out of San Jose State. So shout out to Derek Deese Jr. And of course, I know some of the coaches on San Jose State's football team and good friends with them. But go Spartans. No, I went to San Diego State, but no, go Spartans, Bay Area rooted. Yeah, they had Derek Deese, Dave Fiore. I believe they had Chris Dahlman during that time. Kevin Gogan, if I'm not mistaken, during that time. They had Matt Willig, who they got from the New York Giants. Scott Gregg, who they also got. Oh, no. Did Matt Willig come from the New York Giants? I don't know. I think Matt Willig made it come from the Carolina Panthers. Or was he on the... Oh, Matt Willig was a big, big beast. Scott Gregg came from the New York Giants. He was a good player for them. And who else am I? Oh, Ron Stone, New York Giants. During that time for when Garrison Hearst during those days. But yeah, got it. It's interesting. It's interesting. All right. Lunar Mystic says, love you. Thank you. I love you too. That will wrap it up. I got to get and hit my game grades. Thank you so much, everyone, for the super chat and super sticker. I really appreciate it. And without all of you guys here, this wouldn't be possible. So again, thank you and mahalo for the love and support. I'm going to have to get back and run my game film breakdowns as I get the All Coaches 22 and continue to run my grades. And if you guys have a player you guys want me to talk about or have a grade on, send me those super chat, super stickers. You can also do it on Twitter. So Twitter is linked to my Venmo. If you want to Venmo me something like to run a grade on somebody, please go ahead and do that. You can do that if you have an iOS on your cell phone. So if you have iOS, if you have an Apple phone, there is a link on my bio. It's like a money icon where you can send me money and donate and send me what's called tips. It's called tips on Twitter. So if you send me a tip on Twitter, then I can run those game grades for you and get that out to you ASAP. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you guys had a lot of fun. I know I did. We're about almost an hour and a half in, and that'll be it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in on this happy Monday. Hope everyone has a safe and happy holiday Thanksgiving on Thursday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good day. BEASTwriter out.